Thank you so very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Job Networking team, everyone, for allowing me to share some of my experiences today with the job seekers and others who are online. My name is Camisha Bell, and I work as a data analyst at Roswell United Methodist Church, as Pam just shared with us. I'm actually coming to you today from my office here at the church. I first started working at RUMC in 2017. As Pam said, I was a domestic engineer before that, I like to call it, but some people call it a stay at home mom, a housewife, whatever you would like to call it. And I had done that for many, many years. But some very trying personal times put me in a place where I had to get out and seek work because there was no way that I was going to be able to continue in that capacity and then still be able to support my family, my children on my own. And I was on the cusp of a very trying personal time when I first started working here. And let me just say that I was very financially distressed, to say the least. I want to talk first about some of the short term and long term impacts that can come from unemployment. I think that the short term impacts we are all very familiar with, that we may all be aware it can halt or reduce your income. You might get behind on your bills. But long term, if you have been unemployed long term, whether that is unemployed because you chose to make a decision like I did to stay at home, and or if it was for some other reason, it can still have very meaningful influences on your work life moving forward once you decide to get back out into the workplace. And one of those things might be a decline in wages, income, and even your earning potential or your compensation moving forward. So let's say that you were someone who used to earn $100,000 per year, but then after many years of unemployment, you may not be able to have that same earning capacity. You might also see a decline in your overall financial health. There are human and social impacts that we have as both adults and that there may be on our children, meaning that our interactions with other people can't be the same when we don't have the resources to be able to do the things that we might have done before. Some people might have both physical or mental health impacts, mental health just from dealing with the stressors that come along with unemployment. And with your physical health, if you don't have the either money to make co-payments or to pay for doctor's visits, or for many of us may not even have the insurance once we don't have any benefits because we've been unemployed for a long time. And it can also strain family relations. So, my job search at the time that I decided to get back out into the workforce did end here at Roswell United Methodist Church, as I said, in 2017. I'm still employed here today, and I'm very gratefully so. But I do want to talk a little more today, not about that job search in particular, but about what happened in my life after the job search ended. However, some of the things that I'm going to talk about today can be applicable no matter where you are in your walk in life. But I did want to talk about the fact that the hard work of putting your life back together just begins for many people once they've gotten the job. So, as I've told you, my most recent experience with long term unemployment ended when I started working here at RUMC. The impacts for me once I did start working again were that I lost income and possibly long term earning potential. So I really enjoy my job here working at the church. I love it. It is a wonderful work environment and has many different, very positive benefits from working here that I think compensate for the fact that even though I am working, I'm earning over over half of what I would have been earning in the private sector and what I earned at the job that I had before coming here. And I had to grapple with the fact before accepting the position that it might mean that if I took a cut and pay today, that 5 or 7 years from now, if I decide to make a move, that it could impact my long term earning potential too. So, as we're seeking jobs and choosing, hopefully, between many different job opportunities, you do have to think about how that might impact your future. Once I came off of that period of unemployment, it actually left me financially devastated. So, just to let you know a little bit about my own personal story, I was having marital issues that were related to my spouse being a drug addict. And it got to the point where we could not cope anymore together as a couple. So, when I decided to leave that relationship, that meant that I had to go out and work. However, the impact of being in the relationship itself, even though I was staying at home, it left me personally financially devastated, to the point where once I did get a job, even though I was earning income, I've already told you that I was earning a lot less than I expected, or a lot less than I used to, I should say. But even though I did start earning income, it wasn't quite enough to cover all of the expenses that used to be covered by my spouse and all of the expenses that I had accrued. So it left me not just financially distressed, but it left me financially devastated. Some of the things that happened as a result were that my reliable car that I had was repossessed. I did have another vehicle though. It wasn't very reliable and it broke down on me, and I didn't have any resources to fix it. So then I still needed to get to work here at the church. The church is in Roswell, Georgia, as you all know. And at the time, I lived in Tucker, Georgia, which is on the east side of the metro area, like kind of in the shadow of Stone Mountain. So it was maybe about an 8-minute drive from Stone Mountain from my home, for any of you out there who are in the Atlanta area who are kind of familiar. So that car broke down. I'm living in Tucker and making a commute to Roswell every day to go to work. I couldn't afford an Uber because I was just barely making my ends meet with just meeting my basic needs. I used to take 2 buses and a train to get to work every day. And it took me 2 hours to go one way. After doing that for some number of months, I knew that I needed to have a change and decided to move to Roswell to be closer to work. But I still didn't have a vehicle yet. And I was still relying on public transportation, but I was closer. When I rode the bus, it would still take me an hour one way in order to get to work, or sometimes I would catch an Uber. And that Uber would cost an average of $10 each way for the 12-minute trip between where I now lived and where I work. So even though it was only 12 minutes away, without the vehicle and without resources, it was very difficult. So then we come to the part that I want to really share with you and talk to you about, someone who knew my situation, because I didn't really talk a lot to everyone or open up as much as I now know that I should have. Referred me to a local charity, North Fulton Community Charities, to look into their car program. So they told me that they had a car program available at North Fulton Community Charities where you could submit an application, and that if they got a used vehicle that they would refurbish, that they might be able to give it to you so that you would have reliable transportation to do the things that you needed to do, work, get back and forth, and do the things for your family that you need to do. So I went to North Fulton Community Charities to apply for the car program. And when I got there, they reviewed my financial situation. And now I am working at this point in time. At that point in time, I had been working at the church for a little over a year. They reviewed my financial information and told me that they thought that I needed more help than just a car. They encouraged me to, well, first and foremost, they provided me with the funds to pay 1 month's worth of rent for myself, so that it would give me a little bit of a cushion so that I could start to get myself back on my feet. But they also encouraged me to start using their food bank services. So to come in and use the food bank to be able to get what I could and then supplement what I couldn't get from them, using the earnings from my job so that I could get myself into a more stable place and put myself in a place where I would be able to thrive and not just survive from day to day as I had been doing. So I hadn't thought about doing any of those things when I walked in through the doors. Food pantries weren't for people who are employed. They're not for people who can gainfully work and do all of those things, or at least I thought so in my own mind. But I do want to encourage you that being able to receive a gift with gratitude is actually a very healthy sign of a humble spirit, which is pleasing to God. Matthew 18:3 and 4 reads, "And verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." And so I share that with you just to say that sometimes our pride prevents us from reaching out and really asking for help. But it's okay to do so. It's okay to do so in your job search. And it's okay to do so even after, as you're putting the pieces of your life back together. But sometimes pride prevents us from doing that. Don't let it, because God wants us to know that we are one of his children and an equal heir in the kingdom that he has and the promises that he gives. So don't be afraid to ask for help. So for me, I accepted that help and started taking advantage of the services that they had available, but still ends were not meeting. And I had to take a hard look at myself, my situation, and I actually wound up deciding to file for bankruptcy. And I can't believe that I'm saying that in a public forum, because at the time it felt very shameful to me. I felt as if I had failed miserably. And I was working. I was working. So I should be able to provide for myself and my family. But sometimes when you're in such a deep, deep hole, you have to ask for help. But even in the Bible, it talks about forgiveness of debt. In Deuteronomy 15:1 and 2, Deuteronomy 15:12 and 14. I won't read them, but the Bible refers to debt as a type of bondage and provided for a way for people to be released from that bondage after a period of 7 years. For anyone who's familiar with our laws, does it sound familiar? So the Bible verse that I quoted at the very top of the session, Titus 3:1 and 2, remind them to be subject to rulers, to authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good deed. Some people might call that good work, to work for good, to malign no one, to be peaceable, gentle, showing every consideration for all men. Let me say to you that when you show every consideration for all men, just know that when you show consideration for all humans, it even includes the one that you see in the mirror every day. So show some consideration for yourself. Humble yourself. Seek whatever resources you can to build a better life and take advantage of them. And that includes the job networking program and all of the resources that they might have available. Even if you might think that you don't need help with your resume writing, reach out and see what they have to offer anyway. Titus 3:1 also tells us to be ready for every good deed, as I read, every good work, but not only your own, but society's as well. For me, once I made that decision, it created a total 180. So I now have a very nice, reliable vehicle that gets me back and forth to work every day within 12 minutes instead of it taking me an hour or two to get to work. And I don't have to pay the fees that I was paying to Uber, but I'm also on the track to home ownership and just a plethora of other things that will make the financial life of myself and my family much better. But in order for me to get there, I had to humble myself. And so I would leave you with this to say, be open, know that God loves you, and know that there are people out there who are willing to help you regardless of what your situation is, but you have to humble yourself and be open to that work. And then once you do get a job, start thinking about how you might be able to pay it forward to the next person and provide good works to those people. I hope that those words were encouraging to someone today. And thank you for letting me share a little bit about my story and what happened after I started working. And I look forward to bright futures for myself and for you all as well. Thank you.